So Dave, as someone who's into their third spell with the club, how would you say the club's changed from when you very first started here to when you started the latest spell?
I think the easiest way to look at that is to look off the field. So when I first arrived, the club, like most other clubs, had a full-scale committee, probably 15, 16 people on, all with different roles and responsibilities around the ground. But with that sort of number, the difficulties involved in trying to get a consensus for a decision to be made life quite tricky in terms of getting things done quickly on the field and getting decisions made on things. To come back into this environment now where it's run by a board of 6 people plus the chief executive and myself, it's a lot easier. We meet more regularly and it's a lot easier to get things done. And I've been very much put in that position by the board that they will support me on my decisions, and that they're here not to stand in the way and to get to get involved in decision making and leave the cricket entirely to me. Yeah. So from that point of view, it's a lot easier to run. The other side, on the field, when I arrived here for my first stint in 2004, there had been quite an exodus of the good players. Some had gone off to Sussex, and I think before I actually took off as my first day, Dominic Cork, who was the last of a sort of an era, he went off to Old Trafford, to Lancashire. So we very much had a young, inexperienced side. I remember within the first couple of months that I actually capped some players, not because they deserved to be capped, but because I needed some seniority within the change room environment. So it was very much a time of start right from the bottom and rebuild. I left after 4 years from that time and returned a few years later with Carl Cricken as his assistant. And the good news about that little stint that I did then as a consultant was that we won the championship and went up with the youngsters that we'd started off with in 2004 in the under-13s and under-14s. So the building process had worked, and I'm hoping in a way that it'll work again from now. It's not quite as big a build now. We've got a much more secure team and a good core of players, but there is still a building job to do from the base to ensure that we produce our own for years to come.
And you talked there about when you first here 2004 to now. I mean, how has the relationship between the club and the supporters, has it changed or has it always been as strong?
I think there's always been a strong base of supporters who come to all games. I think like cricket throughout the country, Derbyshire supporters are also torn a little bit by the different formats. So you have a real base of support that comes out to watch 4-day cricket, who are keen on 4-day cricket and 4-day cricket alone. That's real cricket, the proper cricket, the traditionalists, if you like. And I quite happily tell you I'm one of them. I like the traditional game. And then, of course, you get the new support, which is what those games were designed to do, was to bring in new crowds that support the T20, and I'm sure that will now support the Franchise 100 Ball Tournament. So there is a definite, you can see 2 definite types of supporters. But Derby, I've always felt, has had as good a support as most counties throughout the country. There's not many places you can go to where you get as many supporters watching a day's 4-day cricket as we get here.
And you talked before about working with young players. How determined are you now to be able to get more local young players into the team as we head into next year and beyond?
Well, we recently had an interview process to employ a head of the pathway, and the question we asked them for their interview presentations was simply the fact that the last England player this club produced was Dominic Cork 24 years ago. How are we going to produce one in the next 10 years? And the best answer that came out was the first problem we have is from our own pathway. We only have in our squad at the moment 2 local players who've come through that pathway. So your percentages are not very strong in terms of producing your next England player from through our pathway, through Derbyshire and playing. The first thing we've got to do is produce enough local players that we have a vast majority of our squad are local and have been through our systems from our pathway into our team. So that's our first turnaround point. But if you imagine that when I arrived in 2004, we started that program with 13 and 14-year-olds. And actually we got a result in 2012 and 13 when we won the championship. It is not it's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. It is a process, and it's going to take a little bit of time to do it. So you hope that the bricks that you build with now are the ones that will be the cornerstones for the next 10, 15 years. And the results of what we do now, we will see largely in about, I would say, 8 to 10 years' time.
And obviously next year, it's a very special year for the club, the 150th. I mean, how much would it mean to you and the players and really everyone with the club to be able to give the supporters a really memorable year?
Oh, it means a lot. Knowing that it's 150 is a good enough reason to do it. But actually, the conversations we've had in the change room without even looking at the 150th anniversary is the team that we have assembled at the moment, the core side that we have representing our club, is a team that can and should win trophies. And we can go through the next 5 years, have a nice time, play nice cricket and not put any trophies in the cabinet, or we have an opportunity to leave a legacy. And I think with this team, we have an opportunity to leave a legacy, not just to win once, but maybe to win 2 or 3 things over the next 5-year period. And I think if we can do that, it will help also our program of trying to build youngsters, because we know as well as anything, you know, we aspire to being great. And if the people that we aspire to be are winning trophies, that's where we want to be, and it's a little easier to produce them.
And finally, if you can, in a sentence, what do you think this club means to the local community?
Well, I think it's a huge interest value to a number of people who come and watch for us for a start. You know, we're not as big as the football club, but we are traditionally a sport that is loved in England. We're in a year where we've won the World Cup as a country, where our best cricketer has got the Sports Personality of the Year award, our team has got the Best Team of the Year award, we've got the Best Moment of the Year. We're in a perfect position to grow cricket to the extreme. And I think cricket still has a great following in this county and will have for many years to come, and it's going to be fantastic actually giving them something to really remember this year.